Welcome to our World of Fiery videos, covering topics of everyday importance to print providers. Today we will cover how spot colors are produced.
So when we talk about how spot colors are produced, on a conventional printing press, spot colors are produced with an actual spot color ink. That is to say, when I go to print the Heineken logo, I look up that Pantone color in my ink lab in the printing plant and actually mix that green color using some component colors that I get from my ink supplier that are licensed by in this case, Pantone, since it's a Pantone color. I mix that up in my ink lab, I take that green ink that I've made, and I go out and I pour it in the fountain of my press, and now when I run the Heineken job, I'm going to get exactly the right green. And I could do this in Boston and New York and Chicago and Delhi and Frankfurt and all the examples I gave and get a perfect match to that spot color by mixing that ink. The problem with that methodology is or was in the conventional space that it adds a tremendous amount of expense on a conventional printing press to make an extra plate and especially to run an extra unit on the press, not to mention to mix up that ink and then of course to wash up that unit before we do the next job. So for this reason, many spot colors, again the ones that weren't brand color critical but were just used by the graphic designer as a matter of convenience, were converted to process. When we look at how we reproduce spot colors on a digital device, you're going to see that we do in fact use a process build. So I'm going to use cyan, magenta, yellow, and black as I'm showing the way this Google logo is put together. But unlike the conventional press, I have a couple of advantages in the digital space. The first one is, as we showed you in the first World of Fiery webinar 2 weeks ago, there are cases where my digital devices actually have more gamut than a conventional press, which means I can represent more of the spot color library using process builds. The other very big advantage the digital printer has is that on the digital printer, courtesy of the DFE, we have color management. So where it used to be that I'd convert that Heineken green to one spot color build, and I'd put it in all my jobs, and they might run on different presses in different cities on different substrates with different inks and look different every time. On the digital side, I'm going to take advantage of my DFE's spot color matching capabilities and the way it does color management to get an exact match to that color every time I print, even on different digital presses and even on the same press across different stocks or substrates that I may print on. To understand this, we're going to go back to a definition from the first webinar 2 weeks ago and talk about the gamut of the CMYK device. Remember, the gamut of the press is the total reproducible range of colors on that press expressed in device-independent color space. So that looks like this. I'm showing you here a plot of an output ICC profile. We're plotting all the colors that this printer can represent in LAB space. Remember, LAB is one of the device-independent color spaces that tells me not how to print the color or what the right recipe for the color is on my press, but instead it tells me how the color looks in the human visual system. So if I superimpose on this gamut the Pantone library, which I'm doing here, we have LAB values for all these colors. That's the definition in the spot color library on the DFE, is an LAB coefficient for each and every color. Doesn't tell me how to print it, tells me what it's supposed to look like. If I look at these colors here, these examples I've given you, you can see that many colors are in fact out of gamut. Those colors are not going to be accurately reproducible on this particular printing system with this particular paper because I don't have enough gamut. But if I open up the hull or the shell of this gamut and look inside, we can see that a great deal of colors are in gamut. Typically 50 to 60 to 70% of the Pantone library is within gamut of a digital device's CMYK capabilities on a high quality sheet with a custom and properly made output profile. Let's look at a specific example here. So if I look at Pantone 356C, you can see that that color is well inside the gamut. It's well inside what we call the hull or the shell of this gamut, which means it's going to reproduce very accurately when I go to render it on my digital device. Let's talk about how this works in a DFE, or I'm going to give the example of our Fiery digital front end for the digital press. A spot color, unlike anything else in a design document, comes in as a named color. So the actual color name will appear in the document, this Pantone color here. This means that I can use a spot color library on the digital front end, such as a Pantone library. There's some others out there that you may be using or your customers may be requesting. Toyo, Dick, and HKS are typically used outside of the U.S. but are also popular spot color libraries. With the right spot color library, I can look up the name of the color, and what I get out of the library is I actually get an LAB definition. Remember from our earlier session, LAB is the device-independent color space that tells me not how to print the color or how to project it on your monitor, but what the color should look like in the human visual system. Using that LAB value there, that tri-stimulus set of values there, and an output profile for the device that I've made precisely, I can convert to the right CMYK recipe or process build to match that color on the output device. So this is typically how spot color matching works on any of your DFEs for digital devices. The problems that we run into come when that color can't be found for some reason in that spot color library. In order for an application, a design application, to give you something like what you expect every time, there's a mechanism in place in the page description language, might be PostScript or PDF, so that if the spot color is not found on the DFE, there's some alternate definition provided, which might look close to this screen, but isn't going to have the same level of precision as if we look it up correctly in the spot color table and use a high-quality output profile to convert the LAB values to CMYK.
Thank you for watching. For additional resources and e-learning classes on this topic, visit our website. To see all recorded sessions and register for upcoming World of Fiery webinars, please visit EFI.com/WOF webinars.